All right, so welcome to the last day of our 5-day mobility program here. So the last body region that we're going to do is the elbow and wrist, and this one's going to be a little bit shorter. There's not as much to go into this, but I do know that wrist pain is a very common problem with people that play tennis, golf, people that want to be doing push-ups. So I can give you some progressions here that hopefully help with that, as well as people that are dealing with any elbow discomfort. What I want to start off by saying is that the elbow is largely influenced by the neck and the shoulder. Right, so people that have carpal tunnel, things along those lines, I always check their neck, just because with neurological issues, which is affected in carpal tunnel, when the nerves exit the vertebrae in the neck, they obviously pass through a ton of soft tissue, a ton of bony passageways, and if there's any sort of compression at the neck, it can actually just manifest itself, not even in neck pain at all, just in pain in the extremity. So that's just something to keep in line going forward, and maybe take a look at the spine video if you haven't done that so far, if you're having either shoulder, elbow, or wrist problems, and see if your problems tend to resolve. We do a lot of work on the neck with our baseball players here, not just because I'm a chiropractor. A lot of the best evidence is showing that by addressing issues in either the neck, low back, mid back, you can impact a lot of things down the chain, as we like to speak. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is work on a little bit of what we call pronation and supination, which we all know that the elbows do flexion extension, which is up and down. However, pronation and supination, like if you're turning a door handle, right, that actually happens at the elbow as well, because there are two forearm bones that connect there that kind of fold over each other when we do that. So this is going to be nice and easy. You're going to glue your elbows to your side here. And what you're going to do, stick your thumbs out, palms up to start. We're going to do pronation first. Try to turn your thumbs in toward each other. I'm actually pretty limited here. And then back out. Force it as far as you can. Like I said, you get out of what you put into these programs, right? So what you're going to do is squeeze as hard as you can, get your thumbs together, bring them back out. Squeeze in together, bring them back out. So we're going to do this about 5-6 more times, and you should be squeezing your hands decently hard to try to get a good contraction, and you're not cheating through your shoulders by gluing these elbows together here. Awesome, let's go 2 more. And out. Another thing you can do is hold a tennis ball, a baseball, something in your hands, so that you get a little bit of grip strength going in there as well. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to set almost like a table for our hands here. Okay, and so what that's going to do is allow us to pin my forearm to the wrist and make a very controlled circle with the wrist. So if you watch the shoulder video, what we're doing in that shoulder video, I called it a car, right? Which is basically just taking the joint through all of its ranges of motion. We're going to do that same thing here with the wrist. So pin the forearm, nice circles. I want you to do 6 one way with the fist closed to make sure that we're not using any of the finger extensors to get this done. And then 6 the opposite way. Wrists are another region for me that I've had a ton of sprains, jammed wrists, so they're very clicky, poppy, but by focusing on them, I've actually gotten the majority of my discomfort and pain to dissipate over time. It doesn't go away overnight, but you can really focus on it and get some good results. Good, let's switch sides. So the reason you're locking this in place is actually because we just did forearm pronation and supination. What tends to happen is if you just do it in space, you'll get all sorts of shoulder compensation, compensation at the elbow as well. So you really want to tuck that in, squeeze it down onto the leg. If you want to do it over a table, that's fine too, but this is just nice and simple. 6 one way, 6 the other way. And like I always say, if you find an area that's a little sticky or uncomfortable, spend some extra time there. You can pause the video and just spend some extra time there if it feels good. You can always go through this multiple times as well. Okay, next one. You should be familiar if you've watched other videos with the quadruped position, which means 4 points of contact, knees, hands. So what we're going to do now are wrist circles. So you're going to keep those hands flat on the ground. I also want to say, if you're having wrist pain, there's a few things you can do. You can make fists on the ground right now to limit the range of motion and keep them more neutral so you're not bending. You can also take a set of dumbbells, do the same thing, or put a towel underneath your palm when your hands are on the ground. It'll decrease the sharpness of that angle, and it'll alleviate some discomfort in the wrists, hopefully. So, hands and knees, squeeze those fingers and get into those shoulders a little bit, okay? And what I mean by that is don't just be passive. You're going to rotate so that the inside of your elbow faces each other. Create some tension there with the fingers facing forward. And now we're going to roll a full circle going counterclockwise or clockwise. We're going to do 8 of these. So you're going to get on the outside of that wrist, the front, now the outside of the left, and then making circles. Nice, slow, and controlled. One of the big issues that I see with people that actually have wrist pain is when they're doing exercises on the ground, whether it be push-ups or anything else, they're very passive with their grip. And that means that you're not activating the forearm muscles that actually cross the wrist and stabilize it. So try and actually grip the ground, grab the ground. While you're doing this, you're going to create maybe a little more tension, but you're also going to create stability in those muscles that cross the joint. Any muscle that crosses a joint helps stabilize it. So by strengthening the grip, whether you're doing heavy carries or forearm curls, doing different finger exercises, that can inherently help stabilize the wrist a little bit more as well. Good, so we're just going to create circles. If you haven't switched now, do that. Start to put a little more load onto the wrist if you're feeling comfortable, or back off a little bit if you're not. Good, I'll switch my angle so you can see again how much range of motion I actually am trying to get here. Awesome. Let's switch back to an elbow exercise. So here we're going to be in that sort of quadruped position. You're going to take your left arm. You're going to pinch it up and bend like you're trying to imagine you're starting a lawnmower, right, from the hands and knees. So here, now leave it there. You're going to keep that elbow high. We're going to do what's called a kickback. So extend the elbow and come back. A lot of you are probably familiar with this exercise if you like lifting weights, if you're working your triceps. It's actually a great exercise to just work on controlled range of motion of the elbow. So you should feel your triceps squeezing hard right here at the end, and then controlling it back down, squeezing so your hand tries to touch your shoulder. Full range of motion. Keep that elbow as high as you can the entire time. High, high, high. Let's go 3 more on this side, and then we're going to switch. What I like to do actually is get a little rotation at the end here too. So I'll go palm facing in and then palm facing out. Awesome. Let's switch sides. Palm facing. So first of all, elbow high row, elbow high, keep it there. Palm facing in, palm facing the ceiling. And let's roll through that just a few times. Awesome job. 5 more. All right, let's move on to our last exercise. So this is going to be a loaded tricep, elbow, wrist exercise. You're going to be down onto the ground, almost in like a sphinx position, and I'll show you ways to progress and regress this as well. So knees are going to be a little bit further away, and what you're going to do is press your palms flat into the ground, and then push up so that they're straight, and push your elbows out as if you're trying to spin your hands away from each other, going palms out. But again, we're locked into the ground, so we're going to get a little bit of rotation at the shoulder and elbow and at the wrist as well. Palms into the ground, press out, control back down. Let's go 5 here. So very easy ways to regress this. Bring your knees in close. Basically your hips will shoot a little bit higher into the air, but that's totally fine. And obviously the way to progress it would be into basically a push-up position, down on the ground, spin up into it. So again, these are really strengthening tricep joints and then extensors on the inside of the wrist. Any muscle that crosses the joint is going to inherently help stabilize it, so that's what we're doing here with this. So those are the few exercises that I have for wrist, elbow. Obviously, there's an infinite number of exercises that we could do for all of these joints. These are just some of that I think are the best bang for your buck and ones that you can do simply with just a mat. So again, as always, feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Thanks for tuning in. Hope you enjoy this day 5 of our mobility program.